Things were looking pretty good for Mont Vernon at the end of our last video. We had a great supply of rich, well-educated, fancy folk glad to breathe our mountain air without having to ride the train all the way to the White Mountains every summer. Their Gilded Age money brought prosperity to the town, and their generosity helped with improvements like the new church. But the people of the town were nostalgic about the changes they were witnessing. I believe the only picture of Mont Vernon's sanctuary was taken just as the new church was being finished. We don't know who the photographer was, but I imagine he was feeling something like Charles Smith, our town historian, when he wrote,
"The last service in the old meeting house occurred on a Sunday, July 5th, 1896. For something over 116 years, the venerable building had been used as a place of worship on this hilltop. It had been hallowed by many prayers and sermons, christenings and baptisms, marriages and funerals. It was dear to all the people of the town. And however much more comely and comfortable the new meeting house might be, the old house of worship held a place in their hearts which no more modern structure could fill."
In 1887, the town hall experienced its second major renovation. Many of the changes made at that time can still be seen today. The pews and the pulpit were removed, creating a large open space. The choir box was turned into a stage. 2 doors became double doors, upstairs, downstairs, and outside. The downstairs was remodeled into a kitchen and dining room and a selectman's room. The townspeople of Mont Vernon utilized their new space in all kinds of ways. There were yearly town meetings and voting. Schools used the stage for all kinds of student performances. A long list of groups and organizations like the Grange, King's Daughters, Ladies' Home Circle, 4-H clubs, and the Boy Scouts organized and met in the newly renovated town hall. These folks hosted events that raised money for charities or simply amused those attending. As Mont Vernon entered the 1900s, its summer population continued to swell with hotel and boarding guests. But this prosperity was dependent on the confines of train travel. The automobile provided freedom from train destinations and schedules. By the 1920s, more and more folks enjoyed being able to go where they wanted, when they wanted. And our ubiquitous passenger train system faded away. Without the train advantage, Mont Vernon could not compete with attractions that were easily accessible now that people were driving. The town's summer population started to shrink. One by one, the hotels burned down. F.O. Kittredge's Mount Vernon house burned in 1872, which happened to be the same year as the Great Boston Fire, which crippled insurance companies. Poor Mr. Kittredge, the only you-loving Mont Vernonite I've ever known, was unable to rebuild, but he never gave up his dream of recreating that grand hotel experience. The Mont Vernon house was burned to the ground in 1915. The Grand Hotel burned twice. The first time it was still under construction in 1891. Bad luck for Mr. Kittredge again, as he was one of the Grand's investors. Perhaps his hotel dreams were realized as they had the whole thing rebuilt and ready for business that same year. All of this destruction pointed to Mont Vernon's lack of adequate fire suppression. Townspeople including hotel owners, depended on Milford and Amherst's fire departments. Both towns had a big hill to climb to get to us, and turn-of-the-century firefighting equipment was not known for its agility. Principal Stearns of the Stearns School, that now occupied the McCullum Building, housed and maintained a piece of equipment referred to as a large chemical mounted on wheels. But he was away in Boston the day the Mont Vernon house burned, and the apparatus was out of chemicals when they finally wrestled it out of the basement. These large wooden hotels were built before sprinkler systems. Once they got going, there was no stopping the fire. The best anyone could do was to try to keep the flames from spreading to other buildings. Thankfully, Mont Vernon's village never succumbed to fire the way New Boston and Wilton villages did. The Mont Vernon house could house up to 60 guests in 1915, but it only had 3 guests when it was struck by lightning and burned that same year. By then, the tourism peak had passed. Some wondered if the lightning had been created by the owners, hoping to get back some of their losses through insurance money. Many asked the same sort of question about the Grand when it burned in 1930. Mont Vernon's population peak had passed as well. The number of citizens had steadily dropped from 763 in 1830 to 453 in 1900 to a low of 302 folks in 1930. That's a drop of 40% in 100 years. However, the automobile would eventually prove to be a friend to the town and aid in its repopulation. We'll talk more about that in our last video. Bye for now.